childhood friend, still a current friend, but more importantly, he serves as a role model for you guys, girls and guys, as an example for being an Eisenhower alumni, graduate, and also transitioning to college and doing great things, despite his environmental barriers. So when we talk about being an Eisenhower student and demographically where you come from and the things you can't do, what you hear a lot from a lot of people who are outside of those barriers, you can look to Torri and many other examples with him right here in person as to what you can do and what you can accomplish. He's the godfather of my kids, best man of my wedding, and a great person to know. Great author and former student athlete, which makes it pretty important for me, being a football coach. Torri Stuckey.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Glad to be here. As Coach Moore pointed out, I am a graduate of Eisenhower, grew up in Robbins, so this is like being back home for me. So I'm excited to sit and talk with you guys for a little bit. I don't have a formal speech or anything like that prepared. What I was hoping to do is, since everyone here read through the book to some degree, I wanted to have some type of healthy conversation and debate about the book, what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it, you know, things you agreed with, things you did not agree with, and then if there's any questions that you may have, then we can talk specifically to those questions. But me, as a writer and a young writer, you know, I grow from hearing your responses. So you can tell me how I can become a better writer and things that may have, you know, you may have understood, or some things that may not have been clear, or whatever the case may be. But I'm just curious to know your thoughts on the book, and then we can talk about some other things more specific to your questions. So, you know, if anybody be willing to just kind of open up, and again, this is going to be an open forum. You can say whatever you want. I'm a former football player. I have thick skin, meaning you can just be upfront and honest about how you felt about the book with me. And I promise you I won't take it the wrong way.
My part is when you said that leaving the neighborhood to explore like other places, like go to college and see other people and meet different people. Like when you went to college, like how did that feel? Like when you had like different roommates and stuff like that.
Right. That's a great question. Again, coming from Robbins, you know, you get told all the time as an African American that you're a minority. But what does it mean to be a minority when you grew up in Robbins as 99% African American? It's not real for you. It's just something that people tell you. So I didn't really feel like a minority until I went off to college and I got to Northwestern. It was less than 4% African Americans. So then the notion or the term minority became real for me. And then I started to realize just how difficult it was for me to, you know, just coming from the environment that I grew up in. So to some degree, I didn't feel like I fit in. And, you know, it took me probably a year or two of just being in that environment to actually embrace it and feel like I could survive in this environment. But it was a culture shock for me. As I explained and if everybody didn't hear it, she asked the question, how did I cope with the time and period when my mom left for 2 years? I was 12 at the time. She came back around 14, so it was a couple years where she was gone. And the truth of the matter is, I coped bad. Those 2 summers were probably the worst summers of my life as far as things that I got into. I mean, I would stay out all night, started drinking, started smoking marijuana, doing stuff like that, hanging with my older brother and all his friends who were quote-unquote drug dealers at the time. So they had, you know, they sold weed and things of that nature. So it was just more like a sampling period where you're going through something, you don't know how to process it, you're angry. And just like anybody else, if you have anger and you don't know how to process it properly, it's going to manifest itself in a different way. So I was angry at the fact that my mom wasn't there. She would come home. You know, she would come visit all the time. And when she walked in the door, I walk out. Even though all I wanted to do was see her, I wanted to let her know that I didn't need her. So she would walk in the door, I walk out. And out of my frustration and anger with her, I started doing destructive things. And it truly wasn't until she came back home And then another story I talk about in the book with a traumatic experience between my mother and father, where my mother threw boiling water on my dad, and that was truly kind of like a point where I felt like of impact that kind of changed my life from that point going forward. I would say that situation that happened, and then my mom coming back home kind of provided me with the foundation that I needed. And then I had a bunch of people just along the way that were still trying to keep me on the straight and narrow. I mean, I thank Coach Moore. He was my best friend growing up. And some of the destructive behavior I was getting into, he wasn't a part of. So it started to put a strain on our relationship, because when I went to go get high with my older brother and his friends, he said, I'm not coming. So when he wouldn't come, we couldn't hang out. So he kind of, I attribute some of that to him as well.